Wade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today, I'm going to start a new project. And we're doing a neck lanyard knife sheath for this fixed blade knife. And this person wanted this because she wants to carry it with her while she's doing camping and hiking, and she doesn't want to carry it in her pocket, and she doesn't wear a belt. So she said, hey, can you make me a knife sheath that I can wear around my neck and have my knife handy? And I said, sure, we can come up with something. So instead of making just a plain little knife sheath that hangs around your neck, I wanted to do a little bit something different and add something to it. So that's what we're going to do today. So come on in and let's get started. What I've got is I took the knife, and it is a 3-inch blade, and I like the hand grips to it, the way it's cut out for the finger grips. So what I did is I took some poster board and I just went around it and made my pattern just with a pencil, and drew around the blade also on my back piece. Then I figured out how much space I wanted for my stitching around the outside, and I offset that by measuring. Then I drew my pattern out and cut it. Then I wanted my top piece here that'll go on top here, and then that's what's going to hold the knife in place. So all I did was figure out my depth of the blade and traced around my original pattern I cut out, and then measured the depth of the blade and cut that across this way. And that's how I ended up with this piece. Now you'll notice on that I did measure out and draw an outline on there. That's 3/8 of an inch. And I've never done this before, so I wanted to try it out. What I did was I wanted to add something to it, so I took a piece of hair-on cowhide and cut it this size. Then here's the piece that's the front. Here's the full piece that I cut out. So just like the pattern, the knife will sit in here like so. The front piece will sew on top. That's what's going to actually hold the knife, just like that. And I put my serrations for the finger grip in the sheath also. I thought it just gave it a better look. Then I'm going to glue my hair-on cowhide to that front piece like so. Then I cut out another piece this size and then cut around my 3/8 inch border, which gave me this piece. That piece will stitch on top of the cowhide with the hair on. So it'll end up looking like that. So it'll be stitched around through all 4 pieces, so it should be good and sturdy. Give me a different look with the hair on. And I didn't like, once I got it all cut out and everything, this is pre-dyed leather. Well, I wasn't crazy about the color with the cowhide. It would be alright, but I just thought black would look so much better. So the first thing I'm going to do now, when I'm to this point, I've got all my pieces cut out, I can set my pattern aside, is I'm going to dye this black. So I've got some Fibings black leather dye. I've got my wool dauber. I've got my little plastic container, my throwaway containers that I use. I'm going to set the knife aside so I don't get anything on it. And let me put some dye in this container. Clean off my bottle. Always put my cap back on secure. Now, I still have my cowhide, hair on cowhide here, because I do want to put black right on the edge. So I'll start with my larger piece and do the front. And this leather is about 6 ounce. So it's not super thick, and the reason I went with a thinner leather is she's going to be wearing it around her neck, so I didn't want it real heavy. And the other thing is I'm going to be sewing through 4 thicknesses, so I didn't want it to be super thick. So I'll hit the edge on that long piece, and even though this has got some tan dye on it, this black will cover really nice, soak right into that. It's not finished with anything, it's just been dyed previously. So I'll put my black on. Again, I want to make sure I get my edges real good. And some of, the inside or whatever, like, why would you dye that? I just always do. I just always dye the insides, the outsides. Doesn't take that much dye, and that way, no way anybody's going to see any tan or brown somewhere. So I'll just go ahead and dye it. Then that way everything's black, and there's no question to whether anybody would see the tan or not. So I'll very carefully dye both sides of this. Then I'm going to do the edge of that cowhide with the hair on. I'm going to give this one more top coat here. Make sure I have good penetration and good coverage. Alright, those pieces are done. Now, I don't want to get any dye on the hair on the cowhide, so very carefully I wiped off the excess dye on my gloves. It'll dry super fast if you do that. Then I got to be very careful to stay on that edge. Now this is one piece that I'm not going to do the back on because you're not going to see it at all. It's going to be encaptured. There's no way you're going to see it. And I'm going to contact cement that to that other piece of leather. So you will see this edge, the top edge. And I could have made this piece to where it went all the way around, even across the top. And once I cut that out, I didn't think about that till after I'd already cut all my pieces out. So I'm going to try this. We'll see how it works. I may have to, next time I do it, if this doesn't work the way I expect it to, then I may have to make a different piece like this that actually has the cross piece at the top. But I think it's going to look pretty good. I wanted as much of that hair to show also, so that allows me to do that. So we're going to let this dry, and then I'll be back. Alright, so I'm back, and I've got all my pieces dyed black now. They're dry. I did the edge of the hair on hide. So now what I'm ready to do is take these two pieces, the front and the hair on hide, and I want to glue those together. So I'm going to use contact cement, and I'm sure there's other types of glue that would work, but I've found that this works great. Anytime I'm putting two pieces of leather together like this, it just seems to hold very, very strong, makes great contact. Of course, I always like to take my mallet too and tap it down flat, make sure I'm getting 100% contact. I'll do both sides here. It may take a little bit more on the hair on hide just because of the back being much softer. It'll soak in more glue. And I want to make sure I get it all the way out to the edges, because I want to make sure that I have good 100% contact all the way around. That'll make it as strong as possible. So you'll notice I'm going from the center out toward the edge so I can get it all the way out to the edge without coming back from the edge and getting glue all over the side of my leather piece. So I always go from the inside out. I never go back and forth so I can keep from getting it all over the edge of my piece. So the first piece, the black piece, is already starting to dry. You can see there's some shiny streaks through it, but it's already starting to dry. So I'm sure that's starting to get tacky already. This piece, with the hair on, definitely has a lot more glue on it. I'm going to move that very carefully and get that off of that spot where that glue is. And we'll let that sit for just a second before we put those two pieces together. This piece now feels like it's in real good shape. You can see this is tacky. See it popping up off of my board. So, and it's not wet, it's just tacky. So I think I can put them together. Now, this is the key I've found to this stuff. You better make sure you are ready to put these together in the right spot, because once you do, they are going to be stuck together. This contact cement is pretty amazing stuff. and then I just press it down across the whole entire piece. Then I'll take my flat plastic mallet and I'm not wailing on it, I'm just tapping on it just to make sure, and I'm going all the way around the edges in the middle. I want to make sure I get 100% contact. So basically what's happening is we're turning those two pieces into one. Now that piece is going to lay on top of the back piece that has the handle part on it, and then this piece, which, you know, you could say, well, you could glue that on there, but gluing that onto that hair is probably not going to work very well because that hair is still going to want to move. It's not going to be solid. Maybe I could cut that hair off all the way around, but I don't think that's necessary. That seems like an awful lot of work for what I'm trying to accomplish here. So that will go on top of there. Then we'll stitch that all the way around here. Now, I've thought about doing 2 rows of stitches, one on the inside of this outer piece, and then one on the outside, toward the outside of it. That would definitely make it stronger, sturdier, but the problem I think with that is that's major overkill. What I was afraid of is if I just stitched it in the middle all the way around, that this leather may have a tendency to want to like pull up in the middle. If these were my stitches and I'm pulling those tight, I was afraid it might want to cup or pull up, but I don't think it's wide enough to do that. I think it'd have to be a little bit, or quite a bit wider for that to want to cup up. We'll see when I do it, because I've decided I'm only going to do one stitch around it, and I'm trying to figure out, do I want to do it in the center, or do I want to do it on toward the outside? And I think that'd be, if I do it in the center, that's 3/16 of an inch, so I think that's going to be about right. So I'm going to groove this piece so that I know where to put my holes. Then I'm going to put my holes, my stitching holes, in this outer piece. Then I'll place that on top of here and figure out where my holes go in relation to this piece and the back piece. So it's basically going together like a puzzle so that I can actually stitch it. Now, I could go ahead and just groove this outside piece and then use some clamps and hold this together while I drill holes in it for stitching. And in order to get through all 4 pieces, that might work. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the grooving tool and groove this outside piece here. And let me see where I'm at as far as how far from the edge I am. And it looks like I'm 3/16 right in the center. So when I grooved this, I should have thought ahead and grooved it before I did my dyeing. And I'm going to the outside here as I go around the corner of the tip. And then what I'll have to do is I'll have to take, normally I take a Q-tip to touch up something like this where I've dyed it, and then I have to go back and do either some grooving or some beveling or something like that. You could see the tan showing through. That's not a problem. Quickly I can take, I use these little sponge Q-tips. I buy those at the dollar store, real cheap. You get quite a few of them. And then I just take some dye off the lid, the inside of the lid, and just quickly, I won't even have to put any gloves on or anything. And it holds just a little tiny bit, enough that if I keep turning that, and I don't want to hold that down there, use a rag or something, and just come all the way down to the end. And if I keep turning my Q-tip as I do it, then I don't have to keep dipping it into the dye. There's plenty on Q-tip just from the inside of the lid. So as you can see, I'll hold this up for you. Those grooves just disappeared. It's still there, but because of me taking that Q-tip around there, that black dye took care of that. So here it is grooved, ready for me to go ahead and put my stitching holes in there and figure out how I'm going to stitch this thing together. So before I get into that, I'll let this sit overnight and let it totally cure before I start moving around and pounding on it with my stitching punch or anything like that. So I'm gonna make a part 2 of this, of finishing this, and when I finish it, we'll also finish the top part. I'll show you how I do that when we put the lanyard in. So we'll go ahead and finish this on a part 2 episode. Alright, so that concludes part 1 of the Lanyard Knife Sheath for the 3-inch fixed blade. And I'll throw this piece together and I'll slide the knife in there the way it'll be when we're totally finished with it, and that'll give you an idea what that's going to look like. I think it's going to look pretty sharp. Get some light on it. So, kind of a neat project, something I've never done before, with all those pieces. And then next episode we'll finish that up and show you how I'm going to do the lanyard part also. So come on back next week, check out part 2 when we conclude this project. And as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.